Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Hey, welcome to the show today. We have Dr. Jen Welter here, and as always, my lovely and talented and smart-ass co-host, Carol Carpenter. We're here today talking to Jen about her. The fingers are flying early, folks. Fingers are flying early about her badass journey into professional football, badass linebacker in women's sports, and then a running back in the pros, and also went on to get her doctorate in PhD in psychology. Is that right? And you're working for some teams, most notably with the Cardinals, with our friends Reggie Walker and David
I just
Carter.
Mess with minds for a living.
Mess with minds for a living? Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. She's known
this is what
far
it is,
and wide.
whether it's, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just in one way or another, by the way, this is obviously the impact I have on the youth.
Oh.
So Gridiron Girls, if you see the headband, that's the Gridiron Girls logo.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's adorable.
It's adorable.
Yes.
She's
absolutely.
the headless football player. This would be young phenom Kaylee Patterson.
Yeah.
And she started with me at 4. She's now one of the top 10 U players in the country, has gone viral several times for just making people look ridiculous on the field. And this was her Halloween costume of choice. And, I was looking at it earlier and I was like, well, clearly this is how you know you've built a killer brand.
Yeah.
When this is literally the Halloween costume that a young girl comes up with is a headless football player.
Yep.
I got nothing else, right? Like
I love it.
I have nothing else. I
Just
said
put the exclamation mark on it and we're done.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like that was all her too. This is not me like, oh, you should wear, a Gridiron Girls headband or trying to get, no. That's straight Kaylee. And I was thrilled. And so, yeah, that she kind of epitomizes me in youth form, I think.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, you are billed as Buffy the quarterback slayer, so I can see how she got to that opinion.
Yep.
Yep. Without a doubt.
I'm a real good role model.
Jen, she's a mini you.
She is a mini me. and I am proud that she is a mini me. That was funny. My door rang like almost on command. Like, who is that? A quarterback coming for revenge. They know where to find me.
That's perfect. I love all the stuff you're doing, but really we want to know what makes you you. And I got to ask, what makes you a Titan?
I would have never said that, especially growing up. I think that's one of the important things. I think we as teenagers forget what we know as kids. This is one of the reasons why I love young kids. And I founded Gridiron Girls was to really keep them true to who they are when they're young, right? This is a young 10-year-old who is taking on football in the sport that we're not supposed to play. Well, when I was her age and younger, I was this creative little, curious little, practicing my autograph in my room to tell my mom, that I needed a good autograph because I was going to be famous, right? That's the little Jen, right? That's the pure, honest kid who comes out and sees like these big dreams, or who can slay dragons with like a spoon, right? And a pat on your head, and the world is unlimited. And then I think as we get a little older, I know for me, it was, that early teenage years into high school, we start seeing and hearing what we're supposed to do, right? There are models of behavior that we follow or fall into. And then it starts to make us think and question, can I be this and this, right? are there these two elements of self, or these, can we be more than one thing? And I know I struggled with that, right? Like I was on the math team competing, and yet was a captain of the soccer team. And, you know, could you also be friends with like the popular kids or the pretty kids? And I always felt like as a girl, there wasn't the same rules as there were for boys, right? Like girls, it was almost like you had to minimize elements of yourself and not be too good or too awesome or too cool, because then you didn't really fit, or you made other friends feel bad. Whereas guys, they have this term that we don't as girls have, which is like, he's a Renaissance man. He's good at everything. He's gorgeous and he's suave and he tackles people and he's student president. And it really made me think, right? Where do we as girls specifically, and it's kids too, right? But, you know, for me, I happen to be a girl, so that's the path that I walked. Where do we start forgetting what we believed when we were a young, fearless Kaylee, and start feeling like we need to fit in? And I think I realized part of that is, one, society's expectations, and two, it's things like that Renaissance man tag. Well, there isn't a female equivalent, probably because during the Renaissance, women were wearing corsets and we literally couldn't breathe. It's no wonder why we weren't as multifaceted, because literally we were struggling for breath, as we were physically and psychologically constrained to fit into a mold, right? We weren't even allowed to breathe fully, much less express ourselves or explore our full selves. You know, we were supposed to be pretty, right? And we were supposed to be maybe seen and not heard. And we see that revisited in, you know, they say the sins of the father. Well, it's the sins of society revisited on our young girls, where we have this whole accessory generation of women, right? Whether it be the Kardashians or the Real Housewives or the, you know, the side piece show or whatever it is, where we teach girls that the goal is to be pretty, marry well, and act badly, right? Not be an instrument of success for someone else or success in and of itself, but to be an accessory to self, right? So then we're essentially a purse. You just made me an accessory. So I'm a purse, which means I'm always there to be upgraded to the newer and better model. And so for me, I struggled with that. And as an adult, I look at now, where can I every day be the woman that I needed when I was Kaylee's age, right? Where can I find the strength to be different, or the strength to show up as my full self, which isn't just a woman or just a football player or just a coach or just a PhD, or, you know, to show up in a way where well, that's not what a football coach looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. Like, how many football coaches have you met that were a woman? So I guess I am, right? And I look at those things and those areas where those perceptions trickle down into the reality that young girls look at, and then find places where they can follow or fall into, and they struggle. And so for me, it's always about the bigger picture. And I consider myself an instrument for change in how those conversations set up in society, and to not just follow, but to really to lead. And when you mentioned kind of earlier before we got on, whether it was my coaching philosophy with the guys or some of those, like, it's about showing up authentically as me, and almost a bolder version of me, because we know that the person watching maybe will be like, well, I could take a little bit of that. Well, if I'm just showing up with a little bit of myself, then the likelihood is that they're going to take an even smaller percentage of that, right? So if I give somebody the permission to be a football player who has crazy nails, well, she might just paint them the first time, right? And think it's okay. And, or, you know, she might try one pink strand in her hair and be like, ooh, I broke the rules. But if we consistently do it, then you're stacking up those chips of confidence to be able to find your full self.
It's amazing how much easier everything is when we're operating as our true and authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow we got lied to that says that's not okay to be who you are. And people are like, how can you hang around this guy? How can you be, he's wild and crazy all the time. I was like, am I? Or have you only met me in that scenario? Because the real me is multifaceted. It's the Renaissance man. And we're allowed to be both a masterpiece and improving ourselves at the same time.
Oh, you know, we're an epic disaster at times. Anybody who's trying something new can be an epic disaster, right? Like, that's what we forget. As a kid, we're like, oh, it's okay, right? Like, you face plant in the puddle and you get back up and we're like, oh, it's okay, you're okay, right? We as adults will encourage that in kids, right?
Yes.
To try and to fail forward and to finger paint sloppy and whatever those things are, because learning is sloppy. But as we get into adulthood, that perception is that we have to become, right? We have to become before we show, as opposed to being willing to own the process of becoming, right?
Well,
or
don't you think that our biggest problem is, you know, we get to this point where we just want to be accepted, and you'll do anything to be accepted. So you'll even diminish yourself to be accepted.
I think we're taught to diminish ourselves, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
I mean, and
conditioning.
especially as women, right? Like, it's one of my favorites, actually. So I was speaking at a conference one time and talking about showing up as your full self in some of these rooms. And she said, well, Coach, what do you do if you're in a meeting and someone says, oh, she's tough? And I was like, oh, I look at him and I smile and I'm like, thank you. And she goes, but what do you do if you know that they're saying she's tough as an insult? Right? And I was like, oh,
take it as a
in that
compliment.
case, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And I will love on them, because what they're not going to do is actually look at you and be like, I was saying you were tough as an insult. No, they're not. They're a bully. And what bullies want is the energy that you give them back. They're fundamentally insecure. So if you give them the like, oh, I mean, I'm really not that tough. Like, don't think that. Like, you know, I could be a damsel in distress, then they win, right? Whereas if you smile and you're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're right. I am tough. Like, would you like to feel my biceps? Like, I sack quarterbacks. Yes, I am. Like, they're not going to push back. And so you have to realize that that's an indicative of their weakness,
right?
Not your problem. And the only way they get energy in that situation is if you give them that energy. Now, doesn't mean it doesn't hurt your feelings, doesn't mean you didn't hear it, doesn't mean that you go cry your war paint off and reapply before you see somebody else, but you don't have to give it to them.
Right.
And there's a big difference between that. Trust me. I have a secret. You'll love this one, Carol. Just by the way, I mean, you could try this too, Travis. It would be really cute because you do have sunglasses on. I have drawers of sunglasses. No, this is true. I have drawers of sunglasses because how we show up is a part of who we are, right? Yeah. We are the actor, director, producer of our own story of life. Now, as women, right? And you can see so much in eyes. That's why, you know, card players wear sunglasses so that you can't read their eyes. Well, if you're ever having a really bad day, right? Most people assume if you're having a bad day, you just, you know, hide yourself. No. Don't do that. Find some bold, dark sunglasses, throw them on. But the game changer is this. If you just wear bold sunglasses and you throw them on, you look hungover.
True.
Throw them on, right?
You got to bring the attitude.
Bold, dark sunglasses with a bright lip, and everyone will assume that your face is flawless, right? That's that glamorous look. That's that movie star swag. So everybody will make the psychological jump that because you were bold enough to wear a bold lip, that your whole face is done. So if you're ever feeling really crappy and like you can't show up as your full self, throw those sunglasses on, rock a bad lip, and don't even pause for anybody. Just act like the world is yours. And guess what? Everyone who sees you will believe that. And if you convey that to yourself, you will eventually believe it as well.
Yeah. Well, since we started talking to you, and I'm listening to, you know, this strength that you have that I just love. I pulled up a quote, and it just so resonates. And it's from Kavita Ramdas. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it says, "We need women who are so strong they can be gentle, so educated they can be humble, so fierce they can be compassionate, so passionate they can be rational, and so disciplined they can be free."
Love that quote. And it's so true.
Isn't it beautiful?
It, you know, and in saying that, like, I take it as a compliment, because I know that you read that because it resonated with something I said, or the impression that I left. And yet I'm going to make a jump to coaching in the NFL. And that's what you really see that most people don't see, right? These guys are, for the most part, some of the biggest, toughest, strongest guys on the field, right? They're trained killers, assassins, right? Like, not in that sense, right? And I put the air quotes on it because you're supposed to be as vicious as you can to your opponent in the confines of the game, right? Mm-hmm. But it's in the confines of the game. And it's about being the very best at the game. So you're beating the man in front of you, but there's this, it's like, you know, they say honor among thieves, but there's this competitive balance of, I need my competitor in order to compete, right? I can't do that against like a 10-year-old kid because there's no competition, right? Like, I beasted you. Like, that's why we make fun of it all the time, right? Like, you see things where it's like a joke. You're like, okay. And you're bragging about that? No, you need somebody of close to equal viciousness, talent, strength to bring that best out of you, right? And it's like, I want to, like I used to say all the time, I want to destroy you on the field. And then I'm going to go have beers with you after, because without you, I can't be my best self. And so there's a very big difference in life balance between that player that we see and admire and oftentimes fear on Sunday, and the very real human who leaves those white lines, takes off the helmet, takes off the pads. It's like the difference between Clark Kent and Superman, right? Yeah. I always say there's a reason why superheroes have an alter ego, because no human or superhuman feels every day like they could get up and wear tights, right? There are days when Superman does not feel that super and he does not want to put on that outfit. There are days when Wonder Woman trips herself in her lasso of truth and faces into her invisible jet, okay? Like, there is a very real reason why we convey superheroes like that, because we as humans have to do super things, and we also need days off, and we also need days in sweats, and we also need days where we just shuffle in slippers. So the person and the persona are very different things. And for me, as somebody who's in psychology, and hey, at one time was known as one of the baddest bitches in the world. I led Team USA in tackles in 2010 at 5'2". Okay. I played pro football against men. There are people who still look at me. They're like, oh, that's Jen Welter. Like, and I don't just say Jen, right? It was Jen Welter, right? Like, ooh. And like, one of my coaches used to make fun of me. He was like, yo, they only say your full name and it's like a whisper, right? And this was before I went into the men's game, and people hated to play against me. Yeah. They should hate to play against me. I'm not on your team. You're a quarterback. You should fear me. You should fear the pink hair. You should. Okay. But you should also know that I'm the most fiercely loyal teammate and friend. And those are two very different elements of self. And looking at players, right, and coaching players, the truth is you have to know the person to impact the player. Yeah. And There's very real humans inside a big, giant exoskeleton that we put them in that makes them look more superhuman than human. And so often we lose the human in the process. And it's so funny because the friends that I have and the players that I relate to, that's why. It's not rocket science. It's the fact that they're very real people and you talk to them as people. Ooh, oh
Yin
my
and
God.
Yang,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
The male
right.
and the female energy, the balance between the two. I mean, without
I
one,
don't-
other
I-
doesn't exist.
I love the yin and yang, but I won't say it's male versus female energy because we lose the power of empathy in that conversation because too often empathy has been just relegated to being a female strength or a female form of leadership in leadership conversations. And I would argue that's an element that guys can and should be encouraged to tap into.
Nurture.
Right.
Yep.
And that they haven't always been allowed to or encouraged to feel those feelings, right? Or express that emotion. And leadership literature is full on crap. I'm sorry. The old stuff that I read when I was
Old
at Boston
school.
College, right?
Yeah.
Like the autocratic leadership. Like I remember reading all those books from one of the best undergrad business schools in the country. Boston College was top 10 in the country. That's why I went there. And every leadership book I read made me think I couldn't be a leader because those weren't my strengths. That cold, detached persona, not person, who had a hierarchy that looked like this, and you're sitting up top of the tower, like looking down on your minions. Get the hell out of here. It's not leadership and it's not real. And when we discount empathy as simply being that's why she did well in this situation, then we isolate people who are good at that. And we say it's not an everybody trait, which it should be. At the core of humanity, right? In whatever you're doing. I don't care if it's little kids playing on the playground or if it's as big as coaching in the National Football League or running a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah.
I don't want you in my business if you can't relate to the people you're working with. Now, some are harder than others, but if you're not willing to learn and to realize, like I always say, I'm a coach, but I'm coachable. How can I teach you if I can't reach you? How can I get you to somewhere if I don't know where you're trying to go? And so I have to know you as a human, know what motivates you. How do you learn? How do you like to be spoken to? And do my best to join hands in a process of accomplishing a goal. And that means I got to be open, right? You don't command respect, you earn it by building a bridge. And so it literally, like, you'll see me sometimes, I'm like, you're like the robot, like, like does not compute. Like,
Yeah.
Like literally the thing that glitches me is when people don't understand or don't think that that's where we thrive, right? Is in those human relationships and being willing to find a moment for somebody or noticing when somebody's having a bad day and saying, wait a minute.
Absolutely. You
Right?
covered
Like-
a lot of ground there in that last couple of minutes. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of things. One, the competition at the right level, right? If you were up here playing against 10-year-olds, I just picture that Peyton Manning United Way commercial for SNL where he's like dinking kids, like, come on, turn around. Like you can't, like you can't, it's hilarious, but you can't do that, right? You can't compete that way.
That's not right. Yeah.
The leadership and empathy piece. I just retired from 22 years in the Navy. And when I joined in 2000, it was a much different military than when I left here in 2022. We didn't communicate with each other at all.
Right.
People were,
You weren't allowed.
Yeah, you were
My
just
dad,
like,
my dad's an
yelling at
Army
people to
vet.
go
So
do the
first,
thing.
thank you for your service.
Hey,
Right? Let me not
you're
let
worth
me
it.
not say that.
Yeah.
But you weren't allowed to communicate emotion.
You're not allowed to communicate at all. You were not allowed to struggle with anything, because if you were showing your struggles and you couldn't perform, then you were letting down your team. And I understand how they got that there, but I also understand that that's not reality, because if you are less than 100% and you do chose to go into battle, then you're doing your team a disservice by being a weaker link.
Absolutely.
And by taking care of your stuff.
Well, and here's the very real truth of that. And I would tell people all the time, your performance oftentimes speaks louder than your words, right? Especially in a sport or a place like combat competition, right? We'll put those C's in there, right? Your performance says things that your words might be remiss in revealing, right? We weren't taught. We're not allowed to say those things. We're not supposed to emote or blah, blah, blah. But your performance shows it. And the truth is, if my mind is on something that's way more important than a football game,
it's happening right now with Tom Brady, right?
Be present here, right? Then I can't be present here. And so one of the fundamental things that I think often is communicated incorrectly is, you know, you hear it all the time, right? Mess up and somebody says, "What's wrong with you?" Well, you just put me back.
Yeah.
Right. And I just put up a wall, right? Like, as opposed to a one-on-one where I say, "Hey, are you okay?"
Different energy.
And my players just be like, "Yo, it's like she's psychic." No, you told me, because you've done this 99 times out of 100. And today you're not there. You're off.
Yeah.
And so the fact that I know you well enough to say that and to give you a soft place to land, right? Hey, if you need a minute, I'm here. Now, they may not, or they may not feel comfortable, but the fact that you noticed, and the fact that you didn't come down on them, but you built a bridge for them, is a whole lot. Now, as a coach, my job is to get you to perform, which means if your mind is elsewhere, then my goal has to be first and foremost to help you bring your mind back into present, right? Nothing else matters. Playbook, this, that, the other, that's great. But if your mind is over here, right? Like, if I'm coaching Tom Brady right now, he knows more about football than I do. There's probably a rarefied air of, you know, I wouldn't even say 32 head coaches who know more than him, because the dude's been on the field every day for 22 years, right? Like, the game is slow to him. He knows everything. You're not going to shake him there. What we're seeing right now is his mind isn't there to the extent that it normally is. So coaching him is less about X's and O's than it is XOXO or X.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Right. And if we're missing that, then you're missing him as a human, because that human still has to show up and play the game, even if he is the GOAT.
Oh, absolutely. I was talking to David Carter about your coming on the show, and he's so excited. Like, he's like, you have to talk to that, right?
He's the best.
But he was super impressed by one of the things that you did that really just like was mind-blowing for him. You were fresh onto the Cardinals, from what I understand. Please correct me. And Honeybadger was having some problems, and you went right to him. And like, what did you do?
Well, so he wasn't having problems. First of all,
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Look, he's that guy. Okay, he's that good. But he was coming off an ACL, and I didn't know him. I mean, I knew him as a player. I mean, obviously, right? Like, if you don't know Honeybadger, you don't watch football. Okay, Tyrone Matthew, for those of you who don't know, he's one of the best to ever do it. And he's electric. He is magnetic on the field. He is an X factor on your defense. He makes everybody better. He is that dude, right? That dude. And what was so interesting to me, I don't even know if he was back at camp yet, but everybody, because they knew I had a PhD in sports psychology, is coming up to me and they're like, "Yo, doc, can I talk to you? Can I ask you a question? I mean, when I say everybody, it wasn't just coaches. Some of them was coaches, but others were like a media guy or this or that. Like everybody wanted to talk to me about Ty. And they would say, is he going to be able to come back and be that guy, like be the man and coming off ACL? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You got a PhD. You should be able to tell them that you got that mind stuff. And I was like, right, I do, but I don't know. How do you not know? Because I don't know him. I never talked to the guy. Yeah. So how can I tell you how a guy is going to respond if I don't know him? That's conjecture, right? I don't want to talk around someone. That's, sometimes we have to do it from a media perspective, or somebody could ask an opinion, but not in a building I'm going to be in. Absolutely no. Right? Like I could tell you about the psychology of injury and how people typically go through phases, right? I can doctor it and I can pull people out of it. But especially at the top of the top of the top, you want to generalize somebody who's never been average in anything they did in their entire life? No. This is a dude who has broken all the rules. So why wouldn't he defy average now? Right? Or he could go the other way, right? Because he's so extreme and because he's so good, some people take it harder than others, right? And some people don't rebound as well because an injury showed you all of a sudden, that you're not superhuman, that you're not immune. And it puts a different element of thought in your head, right?
A little bit of doubt, right?
That's right. Right. You know that from combat. It's very different. And so, especially at the extremes, and greatness being one of them, there's no one size fits all answer. And to have attempted to do that, to me, it was like, y'all don't even know what you're asking right now. It's insulting. Like I would be pissed. I've defied stereotypes my whole life. Right. So I don't like that. I've heard people, the things I've heard about me, oh my gosh, she's crazy, she's this, she blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, really? And like, I've had
why is it every man's go-to is calling a woman crazy, for fuck's sake?
You find yourself taking notes so you can learn about you?
Or, the stereotypes are amazing, right? Crazy just because they don't know how to make sense of us is what that is.
True.
But with Ty, I was like, I don't know. And they just would get so flustered that I wouldn't give him an answer. So when he finally got to camp, I just walked up to him and I was like, I have to tell you, I have been asked about you more than any other player. And he was like, really? And he was like, what'd they ask? And I was like, everybody wants to know, can Ty come back and be the player that he was before his ACL? And he's like, right. What'd you say? And I told him I didn't know. And he's like, what? And I was like, I told him I don't know. Can I meet the guy first?
Too many people want to give an answer without having the answer. They just want to be the guy, the gal that gives the answer.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he started laughing and he was like, all right. And he pounded me, right?
Oh.
And I look on his hand, and his hand has a mask, right? There's a mask tattoo on his hand. And I looked at him and I was like, you got a mask on your hand? And he was like, yep. And he goes, and I said, when did you get that tattoo? And I think it was his first. And I was like, so you wear a mask. You feel like people misjudge you all the time, huh? He just looked at me and he was like, ain't nobody know that fucking shit about me. And I was like, I'm really fucking good at what I do. And, it was like that. And from that moment on, we just had a really honest relationship that always started with conversation, right? Like, and we would just talk about things. Like he was just so impressed at a little thing that I wouldn't just judge him, that I was going to have a conversation with him first. Right. And I didn't prejudge him. I let him bring me in. Right. Tattoos are often an exoskeleton. Again, it's a choice that somebody made to convey to the world about them. So there's a story there. Right.
Yeah,
there's
a message
story there. And through empathy, right? As opposed to looking at somebody and judging him. Oh, this guy has tattoos. Oh, he's a tattooed man. Okay, what's a tattooed man? Awesome, right? Like, I've been to Samoa and seen like how that is the ultimate sign of bravery and a warrior, right? Or just got back from New Zealand where the Maori culture, you know, the women have tattoos from here that almost look like fangs, right? Like, if you're, you know, person from outside of there, I'd be like, yo, right? Like, if you didn't know and you wouldn't ask, you might be like, oh my gosh, this is demonic. But if you are a person who won't jump to judgment and thinks that there's a story and a reason and honors that culturally, to have a conversation and be like, wow, tell me about this.
We should learn to always go to curiosity first. The problem is people judge before being curious.
Right.
You know why that happens?
First time, oh my gosh, the first time I got my hair dyed pink, you will laugh. I was going over to Australia for the first time. And this is when I'm playing women's football. And spoiler alert, y'all, women's football players are, it is a labor of love at most, right? The most I ever got paid for playing women's pro football, and I say pro because we couldn't afford the professional, was $1 a game. So yes, and it's still the case to this day. Women do not get paid to play football. In America's game, there's no greater disparity in pay gap than in America's game. And I was going over to Australia as an ambassador of sport. They were actually flying me to Australia. I couldn't even believe it. Like, they had reached out to me, all the work I was doing, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, I was like blown away. I was like, yes, right? I didn't even know how I was going to make it happen, but I was like, absolutely, I'm going. I'd wanted to go to Australia since I was a kid. I used to tell my mom, like, other people would say they wanted to go to Europe and Italy and all this stuff. I was like, I'm going to go to Australia and I'm going to have a pet kangaroo. Like, I was very matter of fact about it. So,
don't you even, Travis, you said the magic word, kangaroo, and it's going to like sideline him into something else.
I'm just going to go there in my mind and enjoy talking smack later. That's what I'm going to do. Everyone's been listening to the show. They've already heard the story like 3-4 times.
So, going to Australia, and my hair is like really dark brown. So getting it light is like a whole thing, right? That's
wait, did you have to lighten it and then put pink in it?
Just wait. So, I mean, I was like blondish at that point. And so I would get highlights done. Well, my person was out of town. So I went to a new person. They underestimated the time. And so they hadn't left it on long enough. And I came out and my hair was probably like this color. And I was like mortified because there was no justification for the color. It was clearly a mistake, but it was the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Oh, no.
And I was leaving on Friday. So nobody was doing this hair of mine.
No.
And so, you know, I was like, this color is clearly a mistake. But people with crazy colored hair, nobody usually looks that close. Right? Like, this was my justification. Like, they'd just be like, oh, that's the girl with pink hair. So I went and I bought a home dye kit and I made my hair pink. And when I got to Australia, like, I didn't really realize how formal what we were doing was going to be. And they were introducing me to all of these big wigs as like an ambassador of sport from the US. I have this bright pink hair. And so, you know, I told them all, I was like, I just want you to know I'm doing a social experiment on perception. And so my pink hair is actually a way to see if people would prejudge me because of my hair. What do you think? Does it make me look less intelligent?
Oh, I love it. Oh my God, I love it.
Talk about like fake it till you make it, BS your way through.
I am telling you, though, the conversation you can have based around that is phenomenal. Brilliant. Fucking brilliant.
but really just fucking with them because my hair was trash. But that was the first time I ever had pink hair. And it taught me so much because, all the dignitaries were like, oh, absolutely not. Like, I actually think the pink hair is quite charming. And,
they can't
blah,
say
blah,
shit
blah,
about
blah.
it.
And I was like,
After you frame it like that, they can't say shit.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm doing a social experiment.
Oh my goodness.
Would you care to comment? I'm taking some qualitative data.
No comment. I can't do it.
But you think about that and like all of those things, that having a conversation about a tattoo, talking about somebody or talking to someone before you talk at them or about them. Those all go back to the root of what we're talking about, which is empathy, right?
Yeah.
And using conversation and situation to build understanding through different experiences that, I wouldn't have been able to have myself, right? I don't know what it's like to grow up as a Maori woman and to know that a tattoo is a high honor. I don't. In the States, it's not that. But having a conversation, she could bring me into her world, her culture, how they view things. And I become a richer, better person because we had that conversation, as opposed to just jumping to condemnation. I'm somebody who could have been judged in every situation, in all of the things that I did that were really big in this world. There are a lot of people who closed the door on me before they'd ever have a conversation, right? Simply didn't believe in me for coaching while female, right? It was like the equivalent of driving while Black, except not having the police upside or downside, I should say, right? But the judgment before even taking the time to get to know the individual, anytime we do that in a society, and we've seen it in so many areas, right? It's so detrimental that I tell people, I'm like, I'm not, like, every one of you could prejudge me. So I'm going to give you the gift of conversation, right? I'm not going to judge you before that. Now, if you're a jerk, I'll tell you you're a jerk too. Let's not get it twisted. You can be, jerk comes in every make, model, shape, size, creed, color, sexual orientation, all of it. Jerk comes in all of those flavors.
That.
Yeah.
Right? It comes in all of those flavors, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to be a jerk on jerk's terms.
Are you racist? No, you're an asshole. Like,
right, you're an asshole.
Nothing to do with your race. You be the fuck.
That's right.
No,
Carol, share a little bit about
your interaction with that purely.
Being a female in motorsports and how awful that was. And still is.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, Jen, we've talked about this in the past. This is a male dominated sport, very much like your sport. And I don't think they take kindly to a woman coming into it, and especially a woman that looks to make a change. Right? And even if the change is positive, it's amazing to me how many doors will slam shut, how many things they'll say negatively about you. Like you said, you've heard so many things about yourself. Like hearing it, you're like, motherfucker, like that girl's a bitch.
Yeah,
but really? I mean, like, I think I tread fairly lightly, because
but you dare to tread.
I tread. Yes. But I also am doing it for a bigger purpose, right? And I really want to pave that way for women. And I know that, I've struggled long and hard doing what I'm doing. And if I gave up, who would be there to continue it? Nobody. So I know that for me, this is my purpose, my mission, to make sure that I do pave that way so we can elevate the sport.
I think one of the things that I look at now, and it's easy to get stuck in the hard and in the negative and in the experiences that we've all had. But people have said like that I'm a player's coach or advocate, and that's very true. But that's where I see the potential, and that's where I also found solace and protection and encouragement, right? None of the players did I ever have challenges with. They actually are much more open to change, much more open to someone who will look at them as they are, as opposed to a part of a very well-established system, right?
Mm-hmm.
For players coming up and through, like I found a lot of those guys were really proud to be a part of change, or excited and curious, right? Like we talked about, curious, wanting to know my story, or like seeing overcoming as being a common ground, right? Whereas it's the established hierarchy,
without a doubt, that
who-
actually is the ceiling that you're constantly butting up against.
right? And the way to think of it is this, like I tell people all the time, because again, judgment is hard, and we've all fell on the wrong side of it. And I think I've been extremely tested in some ways, but blessed in a lot. And here's how I look at the status quo, or the hierarchy, or whatever it is, the old guard that, may not like someone like you, may not like someone like me, and it may not even be as much about it's about liking the idea of, because it probably didn't even get to know us, right?
They don't even get to know us.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So
yeah,
it's liking the idea of you, right? Is let's go to a beach real quick, right? Let's go to a bright, beautiful tropical beach. I was just in Samoa. I kind of wish I was
jealous,
in
by the
Samoa.
way, when I texted you and you told me you were in Samoa.
Yeah.
So.
Like, and it had just opened up, right? And how cool is that yet again, with my pink hair, I got to go somewhere as an ambassador of sport, and, on behalf of the State Department. So though there might be some people who don't like it, there are others who do. And we're in the status quo is chilling in the hammock right now on the beach in Samoa. Get a Mai Tai or a strawberry daiquiri or a pina colada, cold chilling, right? There's a little breeze, but not much is moving them off that place. And then the idea of change, which is the idea of you, or the idea of me, comes in and smacks the hammock, spills the Mai Tai, shake things up. Like they were never getting out of the hammock unless someone did this. That's the reason why there's a problem, because the status quo is comfortable in where things are.
They don't like a challenge. They don't want to be challenged.
Change is uncomfortable.
It is.
Right. And so if you're not perfectly content and embraced in this hammock, right? Think about the visual of a hammock, right? Like you're well entrenched, right? It curves to you. It accommodates you. It even rocks you to sleep. Like this is status quo. If you're not entrenched in the status quo, then the idea of change is exciting. But if you are entrenched in the status quo and it is your comfort zone, then you probably don't want to get uncomfortable, right? The idea of getting uncomfortable, or the idea of somebody, disrupting that zone that has been there for so long, is challenging, scary, tough, all of those things. And so
disconcerting,
you represent all of those things, and that's why. And so I don't want anybody spilling my Mai Tai either. And so when I get comfortable, I'll let you know. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, get a new one.
I'm a hamster wheel kicker is one of my things that I call myself, because you go out in town, you're out around people, everyone's operating on their standard operating system is running. They're just in that zone doing the thing. And I want to disrupt just enough so they can know that I see them, get a little smile from whoever it is, sprinkle a little brightness in their day and back on. And someone's like, I see you do this all the time. Why do you do this? I'm like, no one ever sees them unless you do that. Yeah. No one ever sees them. No one ever acknowledges them. And that can be the difference between someone having the worst day and ending it and be like, you know what? There is a little humanity out there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like Jen connecting with her players. I mean, the fact that you actually have a conversation, they feel like they mean something, that they're relevant, that they're important to you. They are.
You
They
know,
are,
like,
but they don't get to experience that from everybody, though, Jen.
Unfortunately. And, you know, I tell people all the time, I was like, none of those things felt like they should be big things to me, right? That's just good human stuff. Those good human moments are what we should be striving for within everything that we do, right? It none of that felt that big to me, right? Like David gets mad at me sometimes. He's like, you don't realize what a big deal this is. And I'm like, it shouldn't be a big deal. That's why I'm frustrated. It should not be a big deal to.
So why do you think it is?
First.
Why
Because
do you think it
systemically, we've not made room or emphasis or put emphasis on things like empathy, right? I remember even when I was writing my book, Play Big, like, I forget what it was, but I kept having to cross it out. It was like, you know, did she use empathy because she was a woman? Or I don't know if it was because I was a woman. And I'm like, no. Empathy is a leadership trait, period. Like, I kept having to rewrite it. Empathy is a leadership trait, period. Like, no, because of this, or for a woman, or any of those justifiers. Empathy is a leadership trait. End of discussion. We are not in like a hierarchical, like, just shut up and dribble. That stuff, this world has seen too much to go back to believing that. That would be falling backwards way more than, you know, than the fallback, spring forward, daylight savings, right? Yeah. Like, we cannot look at humanity and not question why we're not putting humans first, instead of looking for ways in which we look to separate ourselves, right? Like the demographics questionnaires that we all check boxes. Are you this or that? Like, those things inherently create ways of dividing us. Genocide, right? Like, I was just in Rwanda. The genocide in Rwanda was really the flames of the genocide were fueled by tribalism, right? If you want to conquer a people, go ahead and create separation within a culture. Right. Then you don't have to fight them. They take each other.
They fight each other, yeah.
Right? Like true. In Rwanda now, I mean, in time there was so beautiful for me, but like you cannot culturally ask what tribe someone is from, because those tribes were ways in which they were set to each other to kill each other. And it was so striking to me to think that we're still doing that here, right? People say that we're so developed and so woke and so land of the free, home of the brave, and yet we're doing here and suffering from here through things as systemic as a demographic questionnaire, looking for ways to be separate, and separate is never equal. It never is.
It's like putting people in these little boxes.
We're everywhere. And let's go back to what we talked about with girls in the beginning, right? Where you felt like you had to minimize some element of yourself to truly fit in a box so nobody felt better. Well, we're doing that on demographic questionnaires every single day. Where do you fit? Which box best defines you?
Outside.
Right. And every time we do that, we're teaching people that they must find an answer for themselves in their lives. You know, like, I mean, why are there a million ways to qualify whether or not a woman is taken? There's only one for a guy, right? It's Mr.
Oh my God. How did we not have that discussion, Travis?
We talked about this. Yeah. I don't think we talked about it on air, but we talked about this.
It is so crazy to me that and not just that, but if you're dating somebody, you know, you're not taken, you're still single. Who quantifies that?
Right. Like what the fuck? I don't want you to know all this about me. It's none of your damn business. That's right. Why are you with chasing our Super Bowl rings, and I have 6, honey.
Ooh,
Nice.
Right? Like,
that's some fucking bragging rights.
I am
there.
not defined by a ring that you could put on my finger to claim me. And I
Right.
don't feel like I should put that out front. That's why it's like, no, doctor is fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't try and put Miss, Mrs., Missy, any of
Whatever.
that,
Yeah.
because that title hasn't been earned by anybody. But I put a damn lot of time into doctor,
Doctor.
or
Exactly.
coach, or to one of those. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that says it all.
Yeah.
That's the D that can claim me. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. Jen, tell us something about yourself that not a lot of people know.
Gosh, I mean, I think there's a lot, right? I think people know with any of us like a fraction of
Oh,
of our
absolutely.
reality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, for me, my mom's an artist. She was an artist at Drop-In Center for Teens. So, and my dad is a Vietnam veteran who then went on to be a chiropractor and a race car. So Carol, oh yeah,
Really?
he drove race cars
Holy
for a
shit.
long time. And he was a big game fisher. So I get that, that competitive element from him. So I think I'm kind of the best mix of my mom and dad, right? My mom could create beauty out of anything, in relationships, in people. She's just about the nicest human that you could, like, everybody loved my mom. They'd be like, oh, we love Mama Nancy. Like, of course you do. She's like, and she's lovable, and you just want to pick her up and love on her. And Papa Welter scared everybody. Oh, I couldn't get a date in high school because my dad had a football team for free. Yeah, and he was a chiropractor. And so, he'd be like, so I heard you know my daughter. Right? Like, he's just his neck dad. Like you crazy jerk face. Like, I'm still afraid to this day to like bring guys home to my parents because of the trauma I watched my older sister like bringing guys through. I was like, oh no. And then of course, like, Carol, you'll laugh because when I went to when I was first in arena and then with the Cardinals, all of the guys would be like, Coach, you are the most impossible woman in the world to date, right? But they're gonna have to run the gauntlet through us, and no guy's ever gonna run game on you. You just tell us what happened. We'll explain it to you. And so I used to get like, if I was dating somebody and somebody go wrong, I'd be like, hey, what do you think about it? Oh no, Coach, that's you gotta cut that. Ain't worth it. Or Coach, you out of town this weekend? Like, we'd be out of town, right? And they'd be like, Coach, tell us where he's gonna go. We'll send somebody in there. We always got girls who will go test the guy and see if he's loyal. Oh yeah. So my guys were like, no tricks. They'd be like, nah, he ain't worth it. He's a dog. You want me to prove it? You want me to prove it? Oh, I got a girl. No, it doesn't matter. What city? Oh yeah. Hey, and by the way, do this. They're like, Coach, so you out of town, right? Like, this one to know. They're like, oh, babe, you going out tonight? Yeah, send me a picture. Let me see how you looking tonight. So he would send a picture, and then they could send in a girl to be like, okay, this is the dude.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
This is the dude. You need to go in there and see if that guy like tries to take you home or flirts with you or buys you a drink. You need to test him out for Coach.
So how many guys were complete scumbags and how many passed the test?
We're not going to talk about that.
Oh,
We're going to keep something secret. But it is, I will say that, like, to me, there has been few things that were better than, literally being immersed in the guys' world, because the guys really taught me about guys on so many levels, right? Like, and not just as players, right? But we would talk about things that they struggled with. Oh no, I don't, or there'd be times like,
well, and didn't you find like some of it were misconceptions that you had about what they liked in women, and then they tell it to you straight, and you're like, really?
For sure.
I didn't know that.
For sure. Or like one of the funniest things, right? Like, I remember one day I had like these wedge Nikes when they first came out, like the wedge Nike lifts. and I was in training camp, and I had like 4 of the guys, like literally like, yo, coach, shoe game's on point. Right. And they're like, I wish, like, I kind of want to get my girl some. And I was like, well, you should. Like, nah, coach. And I was like, what do you mean no? And he'd be like, so how do I go about that? Right. Like, babe, I just, I saw these and I thought you'd really like, okay, who'd you see them on?
Oh God.
Who? No. And I was like, oh, okay, bet. So you tell them that Coach Jen told you to get them and you use me as that reason. They're like, oh yeah, coach, that'll work. Yeah, you safe. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So literally there were guys who would then like there were a bunch of them, probably like I think every girl on the Cardinals, like who was a wife or a girlfriend, probably got those wedge sneakers. There was probably a run in Arizona. And they could all blame it on me because then I was like, and listen for this. You tell them I told you to get them for her because then she's going to be cool with like your coach too. And they were like,
yes.
I have also had coaches that I coached with when we got back, like when I was the head coach Team Australia, when we got back to the US, those guys were gone for a while. I bought their wives pedicures. So let me tell you, I was the popular coach. Like they'd be like, hey, I got to go do this for coach. Yeah, you're fine. You can go coach for her. Absolutely. I'd send like, hey, you know what? It's your wife's birthday. Like, tell her to go get her hair done. Like, blah, 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 blah. Do these human things. So those were probably some of my favorites. And then, certain things. Yes, guys do care. Nails. Oh, my players would be like, let's check out what you got for the nail game, coach. Oh, okay, look good, play good. Like that's a very real thing.
Wow.
And the boomerang foot thing is true too.
Boomerang foot thing.
To see if you have, they will look to see if you have bad feet.
Oh, yeah.
You can't take care of your feet.
Not pretty. It's like men with bad shoes, like ratty shoes.
But if
nice
you can't
outfit,
take care of
ratty
your
shoes.
feet, how are you going to take care of everything else?
Yeah. True. The basics. If you can't do the basics.
Yes. And I have taken many guys for pedicures. That is probably something most people don't know. I have literally looked at guys' feet before and I'm like, I know your wife. She does not deserve those feet. No, sir. Absolutely no. You want to know why she was in a bad mood today? Because she woke up to that. Coaching is more than just football, y'all. It's life stuff. Like we need to have these conversations. We need to have real conversations.
Grooming. Just basic good grooming. Like you care.
I need a lot.
Right? Yeah.
But I don't. But I need something.
I got a comment on that pedicure game. I gotta say something. We went to see my dad. He's in like Weslaco, Texas. It's a snowbird. And he's like, yeah. I said, what are you going to Mexico for? He's like, I'll go shopping. He's like, me and my wife get pedicures. He's like, you guys should get one. So me, my wife, and my dad go get pedicures in Mexico for Christmas.
I love it.
Yeah. Why the hell not?
You should do it regularly. Why not?
Yeah.
It's about self-care. I'm like, you don't have to paint your toenails, buddy.
Yeah.
But like, let's make sure that these are your money makers. So
yes.
These are your money makers.
You're on them 24/7. Come on.
To see the claw toe coming out of those sneakers, or those sandals, like rah! Like I'm
I gotta ask about that because I got the experts here, right? I have bad ingrown toenails, so my big toe, if I don't grow it out, I have problems. And a girl that I know made a comment about it. She was like, what's up with them feet? I'm like, this is medically necessary. But she was willing to have the conversation and ask the question about it.
Yeah.
You just need them to be, if it needs to be longer, then they need to be very well cared for.
Yes.
They are.
Then it looks like it's intentional, not accidental.
Yeah. But she looked down and she was like, them some toenails. I'm like, let me tell you about it.
Look,
let's talk
if they're
about
long because it's necessary, then they better be really well buffed.
Yeah.
No snaggle toe, no uneven, no cracks in it, very well buffed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
None of that.
You're saying it's medically necessary for them to be long. I'm saying it's then overly aesthetically necessary for them to look good.
They do.
Otherwise, I'm gonna call bullshit. I'm gonna say like, I don't believe you. It's medically necessary. No, this is not medically necessary. If they look well cared for and you're like, I get really bad, because of this,
Ingrowns,
then they have to be right at that ledge. I get that, right? Right.
It just
If they're
means
ingrown, they have to be past a
more
certain.
regular manicuring or
You should be
pedicuring,
there every
right?
2-3 weeks.
Yeah. In order to
3
keep
weeks.
it at that length for it not to be painful as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Can't have them sneaking out the front of the shoe.
I can't have my nails
there's-
getting there before I do.
Yeah, that's right.
No. And there's another part of it too, right? Like, and this is reality. If you have absolutely terrible feet, some people do.
Yeah, true.
The rest of us do not need to see them.
Yeah.
There are such
Sandals.
things as closed toe shoes, right?
Yes, sandals are not for
Not
everybody.
your friend. Yep.
Look, if there are times when my pedicure should have been done earlier. I'm not wearing freaking sandals. Just not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yep.
As we're getting ready to close out here, Jen, I'd love some advice for anyone out there that's struggling with who they are, really grabbing hold of who they are as a person and showing up in the world as they're meant to be. What would you tell people?
There are so many times when I have felt like the challenges were too big, or I wasn't enough, or why am I the person doing this, or am I brave enough? And I kind of pushed myself, one, to be the woman that I needed when I was my age and didn't have. Not that I didn't have my mom, who I love tremendously, but I needed somebody who I could look at and say, you know what, from an athletic standpoint, or a position in the world, I need X, right? And I know I didn't have as many of those women out front as a young girl, right? So that's one. And then number two, I also dig back to, and part of this is the position that I found myself in, being the first female to coach in the NFL, is I kind of say this, like, if I can't do this, who can, right? And if I'm not brave enough, then someone else should have been in this position. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, for any one of us, I mean, we just had a whole shoe conversation. Walking in someone else's shoes isn't comfortable, and it's certainly not sustainable, right? The goal is that you don't just make a first impression that you can't maintain. It's that you show up in a way that you'd be comfortable living with and working with and relating to every day, right? Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have down days. It doesn't. But whose voice do you want to carry, right? If you wouldn't want to be that person the next day or the next day or the next day, or if you feel like you would boil over if you had to not speak or not act, then eventually you're going to come outside of that very, very careful manicured framework that you crafted to show up in one day. You're not going to be able to be that person for the long time, and you'll end up being very uncomfortable. So for me, one of the things is walking in a first time as yourself with crazy nails and pink hair and whatever else is, or even just simply being a woman in my profession. It's uncomfortable. It's hard. There are people who are going to make judgments. There are people who are not going to like you simply for existing, right? First inherently means only. So I've been the only many, 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 many times. So it is a part of what my whole life will look like. However, after that first uncomfortable impression, the truth is that the rooms that I get invited into now are ones who know what they're getting. Mm-hmm. People aren't surprised who ask me to, coach on a team or to be on a board or to speak on a stage or to go to Samoa. They're not surprised by the person who shows up. This is what they signed up for. And so by setting that expectation in the first room and realizing that there are going to be moments of discomfort or moments of, some friction in the beginning is worth it, so that the conversations, the expectations, and all of those things down the road, I am exactly what they're looking for. And realize that there are some rooms that you're not meant to walk into. And there are some places that you're not going to be welcome. And that's as important to know as knowing who you are. One of my friends says often, go where you're celebrated, not simply where you're tolerated. And I think too often, because we are trained to believe we should be trying to fit in, we're ending up in situations where we're simply tolerated. Whereas if we go into places where we can truly stand up and stand out, we'll actually be in the rooms that we're celebrated for being in.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. Jen, if people want to get a hold of you and connect with you, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, probably the easiest is via social. At jwelter47 is Twitter. At Welter47 is Instagram. I think it's Welter47 on LinkedIn as well. And my website is jenwelter.com. So pretty accessible via those things.
Perfect. We'll have all those links in the show notes. Dr. Jen, well, thank you so much for coming on, being real with us, honest, open, telling some great stories, and most importantly, being you.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.